Welcome to the Healthy Perspective Podcast with your host, chiropractor, entrepreneur, mentor, and author, Dr. Chris Bowman. He'll break down and extract the secret sauce behind his own success and the success of some of the top leaders in every category and from around the world. Get ready for your weekly mental adjustment because shift is going to happen.
What's up, everyone? Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of the Healthy Perspective Podcast. We are in for a treat today. Hopefully not too much chaos, but maybe a little bit of it because we have some of our good friends. Gosh, we've only known each other for, I think less than a year, maybe even about a year, but we've become super close. We live in the same area. We have very similar interests in that we're kingdom-minded. We're animal scheduling around oriented. We both have families that we love spending time with, and so I'm so stoked to have Perfect Chaos Ranch. We have Mr. Kyle Thompson and we have Sam Thompson, his wife, with us today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us here. I feel super honored to be here.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm glad you guys agreed to jump on. When I was thinking about earlier, when we first met you guys, we had just kind of really we're super new in our homestead journey. I think we just had got some pigs or something like that, and I think the connection was like you guys were like, oh, we have animals too, and our view of homesteading was, oh, we're trying to do this regenerative culture, agriculture, type of deal where we're rotating animals and for the goal of like production, and then the first time we went over your house, I'm like, they don't really have a homestead. They just kind of have a bunch of expensive pets. I was just like, oh, this is, it's different, but it's so cool going over there now and seeing what you're doing now with, all the eggs and what you're doing with the orchard and what you're doing with the beef and, the bees and teaching the, homeschool kids and milking. And, so it's really cool to kind of see where you guys were to where we're at now and the things that you're planning for the future. Let me just ask, where does that love for animals, kind of start? How do you decide to start a homestead, an Instagram, and then leaping into kind of what you're doing now with, beef shares and whatnot? What's kind of the goal around it? Because it's a lot of work. It's not a lot of money, and you kind of have to have some reason and purpose, behind it. So why don't you walk us through that?
Sam?
Yeah, so Kyle actually grew up on this property. And so what it used to be was a animal rescue.
Okay.
And so I would say we're second generation, but really what we've converted it to is now into a homestead, and we're trying to create.
Oh, it's still a rescue.
Oh, for sure.
For sure. I don't think it will ever go away.
Yeah.
But it's definitely transitioned to be a lot more of a producing property.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I think going from that, where my mother-in-law, she originally said we couldn't process any animals on the property, to now we're raising animals for food. And I explained to her, our animals, they only have one bad day. And we tell everybody that comes on our farm tours. We love on them, we spoil them, and then they have one bad day. And we hold that. And that's kind of our values for our ranch here.
Mm-hmm. So what are you raising? What's the difference in the meat and the produce and whatnot that you guys are able to take from your property versus store bought? What are the benefits? Like why go through all the effort? I've cleaned chickens with you guys. Why go through all the effort versus just going to Costco or something like that and picking up food from there?
From a simplicity's sake, it certainly is a lot easier to drive down to Costco or Albertsons and get some food, right? The one thing that I've found a huge attractiveness to is I know what my food has eaten. I know how it's been treated. I know that it doesn't have anything added to it that I didn't, the only additives they're getting here are table scraps or extra rich leftovers that we might have. It's nothing that's, been infused with chemicals or hormones or antibiotics to help them do something that they wouldn't on their own. So for me to look at the food I'm eating and literally be able to look out my kitchen window at times and see the chickens or the beef shares we're raising here, it's comforting, right? It's comforting to know that, as Sam put it, that our animals have a great life and will only have one bad day here. And it translates to our plates as, I think, fresher, better tasting. And again, you can have that comfort knowing that it had a great life.
Yeah.
And it's funny, we actually started out with quail. That was our first, like, for processing. We've always had chickens, but we're like, okay, we're going to
start small, huh?
Yeah,
Exactly.
we started really small with the quail in a track home.
Yeah.
And our neighbors looked at us like, what are you doing? And we're like, no, it's cool. We'll give you some eggs. It's fine.
Yeah. And, it's great because you get to learn from your mistakes, and talking to people now and helping them, create their own homestead, and just start building up or planning for, their future homestead. It's really important to start small and to learn by making mistakes and to have that chaos, as we call it. And, you're learning and you're growing and you're stretching. And so, these animals there's really good days and there's bad days, as you guys know. But it's been a really amazing journey in growing us as people, and helping our kids know where their food comes from as well is a huge important factor. The first time they ate their quail, they were kind of like, is this our food? Is that our quail? And like, they didn't really want to eat it. But then we talked to them, and it was a learning, opportunity to tell them, like, this animal gave its life for you. And so we don't waste our food. And I think it's really important for kids to know that, because we all have kids that don't want to eat their food all the time.
Right. Yeah. And, going into Albertsons or Costco or, whatever, kind of sterilizes that life or death understanding, which, especially being kingdom minded, believers in Jesus Christ and his death and resurrection, it's kind of a story. A lot of our kids don't really see death, and even if they do see someone in a casket or whatever, they're almost made to look alive. Like, there's really a very poor understanding of death, and you only see it when somebody gets sick or great grandpas or whatever. But to actually see something get born all the way through its life cycle and get harvested, I think it's a really unique perspective that our kids get to have on life, that like there is a finite amount of time that we're here, and let's not waste it doing things that don't bring us joy and bring us value. How has kind of this bringing cows that you're going to eat, bringing turkeys and chickens and all these different sort of animals, how are your kids kind of responding to, like, one day this will be a hamburger on July 4th or whatever? How do they take that, what maybe the beginning to like what the lifestyle is now?
I think, as Sam put it, the quail, I don't think we let them be as involved with the quail processing. When we started processing chickens, we had talked about it, and our kids had gotten a little older. Our oldest was 7 and our youngest I was involved was going to be 3. And when we started processing those, we wanted them kind of in the mix of it. And I think that was really insightful to them. We didn't push them to do anything they didn't want to. They helped in the areas they could help with. And it really helped them to understand how it was going. Then when we brought in the next set of baby chicks that we would raise up to be the next set of meat birds, I think I noticed that girls, especially our daughters, wanted to take care of them, and fully knowing that was the next point. We're like, okay, this is a generational mark. Like, this batch of chickens are here. We need to care and love for them and provide for them. And then they will, that's all good. I got distracted by the message. Sorry. The sweet Mac feature, right?
Right.
But then you get to see them turn into food, and that being able to see the before, middle, and end helps them get to where they are today. Now we're on to beef shares and larger cattle. The girls are helping bottle future meals, right? And they totally understand it. And I don't want to take the illusion away that even as parents, that we don't get sad when we load up our animals, because it is a bad day regardless.
Right.
When it's time to punch the clock, it is tough, and that's okay too.
Yeah. And there is that having healthy respect for for the animal, you know, like it is okay to be sad when it's time to, you know, to butcher. Like it's not like you have to numb your emotions or you become this you know, brutal, calloused person. How could you kill an animal? As much as like I recognize that, you know, like this is giving it, like you said, giving its life for me, and I don't take it lightly, and it means more now when I'm cooking it and when I'm feeding it, and you know, whatever, like nothing is going to go to waste here versus something that you just buy at Sam's or Costco or, you know, whatever. It's like, yeah, whatever, we got more and we can go buy more tomorrow, you know.
Yeah.
Something that's kind of interesting that, you know, and I don't know if it's sped up the process to where you guys are at now, but you know, with COVID and watching supply chains diminish and control increase, you know, you can't go into the store without a mask, or you know, watching like nobody can find people to drive the trucks, or you know, whatever. I think that really exposed a vulnerability in a lot of people, you know, where it's like, shoot, I got enough food in my house for like a week, and after that, like I'm done for. You know, like if I can't go to Costco and buy my food, or Albertsons and buy my food, I'm actually pretty illiterate on how to get from a live chicken to a, you know, a roasted chicken. Even if I could buy a live chicken, like, you know, even if like your neighbors asked, hey, can we have some quail? We can't find any meat. I'm sure you could have given them a live quail, and they're like, I don't know what to do with it. You know, is there some satisfaction in knowing that, you know, should things, you know, get more difficult to buy meat or sell meat, or get to the store, or supply chains become squeezed a little bit more, is there some satisfaction in a sense, like a sense of accomplishment, especially with your kids, where it's like we are empowered and equipped to handle a situation like this, not in a sense of like we're hoarding and we're afraid, but we want to be prepared and enabled so that way not only we can survive, you know, but now we can be a beacon of light for others, you know, around us. And that's, you know, really what I've seen, you know, getting closer with you guys this past year is everything that you do is not for myself. You know, you don't do farm tours to make money. You don't sell beef to make money. You don't, you know, it's not like a self-motivated thing as much as like we recognize that this enables us to live in freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to empower other people to then live in that freedom and be exposed to the world. Like, is that, has COVID kind of like encouraged that drive and seeing that like we have a unique opportunity that a lot of people in Southern California don't have to offer, like track homes, like people can't raise an Angus steer in their backyard, like, you know what I mean? Is that cool to be kind of a part of a process for somebody else that wouldn't really be able to do that by themselves?
You know, the pandemic really shifted our view on everything, I think,
Yeah.
for as far as our property goes. It was a shifting point. No matter what, we were trying to decide, were they going to sell the property? We couldn't do that because, you know, Kyle and I met in 5th grade, and this was like a huge, and we grew up here.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to know where our food comes from, and teaching our children, first and foremost, the lost art of raising your own food, gardening, and, you know, home, everything, baking, sewing, all of that, the whole package.
Yeah, and it was just, and it was a generation away from us.
Mm.
Right? Like my grandfather, our kid's great grandfather, lived on the property at the end stage of his life, and his childhood was much closer to what our children's childhood is today. Right? They would go camping, and he would hunt quail and bring it in, and that was literally their dinner.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about eating, you know, chickens from the backyard and things along those lines. So the fact that it was just a generation away from us, because I mean, other than a few hunting trips with my father, there was certainly never processing a dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And to think that was a generation away from being lost to our children was kind of shocking.
Yeah, and not, I mean, obviously we are blessed, and we've been able to still go, even though it was going to, you know, scary. We couldn't get everything we needed at some point. We've always known that we were able to feed our family, and we felt really blessed in that. But at the same time, just knowing that we were able to pass that on to our kids so that they can keep passing it on. And then also at the same time, opening up our farm to families that, they were just stuck in their homes and not being able to do something. And so to be able to give them a place to be and something to do, and now teaching people, and like you were saying, like the bees, like just learning things that you don't get to learn every day, it's a huge blessing for us. And there are, like I said, there's days that just it's hard and you're tired and you don't want to get up every morning and feed all those calves and chickens and everything. But then once you do it, there is a sense of accomplishment. Yes. And being able to have other people a part of it too is, I mean, some of these kids that come here, they've never seen a horse before. Right. They've never seen a cow before, or pigs. And yeah, it's really special. And I'm really grateful that my kids get to, be a part of that as well. And
yeah, I mean, even the kids get to be a part of the farm tour because they're certainly up in the front, hard charging and being like, no, it's not scary. Come in here, come see a pig or whatever it might be. They're showing you can make friends and be kind to, especially some of our animals that won't be here forever. Be kind to them while they're here versus the commercialized aspect to it.
Yeah. A thought that I've had in my head, I remember when we got that Kuni pigs and be, that trip that we took, that first trip back from the butcher. And I think we had some conversation around, like, it's definitely not cheaper to homestead, but I've been thinking about this. It's not cheaper when you look at it one dimensional. If you're trading, meat for meat, it's definitely cheaper to go buy it from the store than it is, you know what I mean? But really, when you're homesteading, raising your own, butchering your own meat, it's almost an apples to oranges comparison, because you don't necessarily do it just for the meat, And so I don't know, you kind of look at, I don't know, this is a really nerdy example, but like a lot of people want to take like vitamin C, when they're sick. And it's like the vitamin C is the most well-known vitamin for, when you're sick, this is going to help you, get better faster. But what a lot of people don't realize is that the vitamin C that you find in oranges or in strawberries or, all those fruit, it has a whole bunch of other helpers and, synergistic vitamins and minerals and enzymes and all those things that work together to enhance the power of the vitamin C. And then vitamin C helps those other things. And so getting the vitamin C in its holistic source with its, buddies in a sense is going to be much better for you than just taking an isolated, vitamin C. And that's almost what people look at. And that's definitely a view that I had of homesteading, is like, I'm looking at just the beef. Yes, this beef is probably way more expensive in time and money than going and picking it up. But then if you're going to take the vitamin C, you got to supplement it with a whole bunch of other things to make it complete, right? With the beef, butchering, growing up, butchering and whatever, it's like you had the whole entire experience. You don't have to supplement education with your kids. You don't have to supplement supplements with your food. Like your food is full of all the things that should be filled with. You don't have to supplement immune system stuff because they've been digging in the dirt. They've been shoveling the poop. You don't have to supplement exercise. They've been walking up and down the hill. They've been walking the cows. You know what I mean? It's like, so just getting an isolated form of meat means that you have a whole lot of extra work and things to pay attention to, versus when you're growing your own food, whether it's just produce or even, like chickens or beef. Have you ever tried to chase a chicken? Like, I mean, that is your exercise for the day, and so I've just been able to get this perspective where we're taking a zoom out and be like, wow, growing your beef is actually way cheaper from a life perspective because of all the other benefits that you get, rather than just buying the beef from the store. Have you thought about it that way too?
Yeah, I mean, there's some of this that, right, when we talk about the cost of beef or whatever we're talking about, on a 1-to-1 scale, at times it's not cheaper. With the way supply and demand is, I think beef is...
Oh, we're getting there for sure, yeah.
It's getting close. But when we look at the whole thing, everything else is the byproduct is amazing, right? I mean, just from... I have a beautiful home. I have my kids out there with me working on the property. My kids bed fairly easily because they're tired from working, running and playing. And you're right. From the immunity perspective, our farrier was here, our horseshoer, and we were joking that, he was washing his hands in a hose bib. And I'm like, hey, there's a proper bathroom around the corner. You can go and wash your hands. He's rubbing his hands off in his pants and he's like, nope, this is how I stay healthy, man. I got to keep my immune system. And I'm like, you're right. Like being a farm kid is a huge benefit. Being exposed to this little by little is great. And being able to have a full dinner with friends and families, that you can be like, oh yeah, this did come from our property.
Right.
Like from the grapes to the steak to the vegetables, like that's the goal.
Yeah. And I think also with that too, with expenses, like for me, I look at it kind of as like a puzzle. And so like that is like, I'm really competitive by nature. And so just to think like, okay, now what can we do? Like, how can we, like just talking with other people that have run cattle and just saying like, okay, can we lease property, or can we like, what can we do that's going to actually make this maybe not even profitable, but to where we can now have beef for our family, for the year, that would be paid for, just for it to pay for itself would be wonderful. But, more than that is, like you said, it's
the byproducts of getting to do all this. I mean, never in my life, Chris, did I think I would be driving home with cows in my truck, calling the, director of land use for the National Forest to talk about a lease agreement to run cattle in the last little section of unforested land. Like that totally blew my mind. I was like, oh, okay, this got real quick.
Well, especially in California, we don't have like the climate necessarily.
In Southern California, especially. Yeah, it's there in Northern California, but you look around here, there's no big cattle ranches. There's no big, the biggest operations would be the dairies, and they're not very common anymore too. And the dairy is doing what we're doing, right? This small batch.
Right. Yeah. That's so cool. And I think that kind of answers, the first question, obviously, that we kind of get to, like that selfless purpose, where if we can encourage other people and we can show people that there's more to life than just this sterile, you send your kids to school and they come home, they don't remember what they learned. You eat a dinner that, everyone's paying attention to their phones, and you go to work, you come home and it's just like a life of paying the bills, and it's a mundane, sort of thing. There's a life more than that, for people that do, live in a tract home, or may not, have the financial freedom to, to buy a cow, or, so like a major, thing that people consider like homesteading, or, whatever. What would you recommend for people that are longing for this sort of lifestyle, but it's just not in the cards for them right now?
Well, we tell people all the time that you can homestead. I mean, homesteading in itself is not necessarily like, yes, space is nice, but you can do it. I mean, we have friends that are in condos that can just stretch their space as much as possible for gardening and the balcony gardens. We did that for a while we were modeling this place. We were in a tract home, and we took every square foot of that backyard and we planted, and we had spaghetti squash all over that backyard. And then we had a balcony with strawberries, and that was like the best. And we had quail in our garage. Quail are quiet. I mean, you can do it. It's challenging, and that's part of the fun.
It certainly does. And then the other part is, I think we'd love to share in that, right? We're part of that group
and supporting your local farms that are near you. That's the best thing that you can do too. And supporting one another. Like, you can't do it all. So I think just having that community and saying, okay, like, you grow the tomatoes and I'll do the lettuce, know? And so there's a lot of ways. There's aero gardens where you can grow in your house. So
there's teamwork efforts into it, and homesteading is a lot more of a mindset, right? Like, what is your goal for your family? Knowing that you're eating, humane, ethical meats. Is that your why? Or is it organic vegetables, and that's your biggest drive? Or is it all of it, right? And you can start that teamwork. And the biggest success we found is partnering with people that are better at things we're not, right? And using that leverage together to be able to benefit one another. I think that's really important in it. And, as Sam said early on, part of that was opening up our home and letting people come up for the tours and getting to experience that and getting to be a part of it. That was, I think, hugely influential to a lot of families, just being able to get out, but also being able to see what other people are doing or be able to share in that. Because we don't want this just for us.
One of my favorite things was this last summer when we opened up our home to a group of young girls. And I just taught them like basic skills. Like we did making orange juice and making jam and sewing. And that time was so special. And I think even if you don't know how to do it yourself, learn with your friends and learn with your kids and be okay with messing up and not doing it perfect the first time. That's the best, because I don't like sewing. I'm actually terrible at sewing, but I taught all these girls and I'm like, wow, like we're actually learning this together. It's great. So yeah, I just think being okay with messing up is the biggest.
I think that's
part of homesteading.
Been this homesteading journey is being okay with failure.
Yeah.
Like, and learning how to quickly deal with, okay, what do we do? How do we go from here? Because it's homesteading will humble you. For sure. You're like, oh, I can build a fence. Right. 2 hours later, you're crying in the corner with blisters on your hands. Like, I hate fence building.
Right. And you know, something that I don't know if it's weird answering my own question, but like something that I've learned too, like working with these animals, especially when you're working with animals bigger than yourself, you know, like we have a 250 or 300 pound pig and, you know, these bulls or a bull and a cow. And the cow might be the only one that I can kind of, in a dire situation, manhandle. But the other two I've tried and gotten destroyed both times.
Yeah, we've seen.
Yeah.
But it's funny when you come to their level, like we built a little lane for Penny the pig when she escaped, and we put food in front of her face and she walked right in where she wanted to, versus me trying to wrestle her in went terribly. And same thing for our bull. It's like, you know, like once I figured out his mannerisms and what he liked and what he didn't like, you know, then it becomes easy to handle. And it really was a reflection on my, I don't know, desire and almost forcing things to go the way that I think they should go, you know, not really being open to other opinions. You know what I mean? Like if the pig wants to go that way, that's not the right way because I want it to go this way. Now, I think that's one of my favorite things about the homestead is, you know, with kids, I can still kind of make my way happen. Like I'm not terribly open to their idea of things yet because I'm the parent and I think I probably, you know better, which most of the time I hope is true. But with animals, it's like it doesn't matter if your way is better or not. Their way is what matters, because I'm not getting a pig to move somewhere the way I want it to if it doesn't want to go there, you know? How is that for you guys? It's like realizing like, man, if one of these like animals gets out and it doesn't want to go this way, like we got to figure out a different way. Like how is that like problem solving and, you know, process for you guys? How has it been for your marriage? Like, how is it, like, what has it revealed about yourselves? It's just similar things, or?
Yeah, it's not a matter of if, it's when they get out. And it's happened so many, like just last week, I've had cows out on the playground and we had horses out, and just, it happens. It's part of it. And yeah, you just have to go with the flow, and you have to really just not get worked up about it. And I know it's weird to say that, but you really can't. Like Kyle's phrase is like, that's weird. That's when I know something like terribly wrong has gone. and I try not to panic in the moment, but yeah, it's normally there's something happening. And so I think for me too, because, you know, Kyle, he's not home all the time. He works, he has a job Monday through Friday, and, you know, he works long hours. And so I have to have a team that I know that I can rely on when things do go really wrong. And yeah, I have to have the right mindset myself, but I have to also be okay with getting help, and making sure that I have a, you know, good team around me to help, like neighbors and people that I can call right away to help, because it can be dangerous. And there are times where I'm like, wow, like I almost just got my face kicked in from this cow. And I called Kyle one day and I told him I was moving to a condo in on the beach.
Yep.
I said I quit. I put in my 2 weeks notice, but changed my mind.
At the end of it,
14 other cows to the property the next week.
16. Let's be clear, 16. Like I don't want us to sound like pathetic with only 14. Yeah, I mean, you're right. the animals have their own mindset, and homesteading is kind of all about working. Like, I think that's the perspective I took from it. I wasn't exactly like, you wouldn't call me the work with nature or the work with the natural order of things. I was certainly taught to ride by cowboys. I was taught, how to handle horses by cowboys. I was taught how to work with, barbed wire and, railroad ties. Like, was kind of like the old school way of doing it, right? Quote unquote, the old school way. And I've had to really work hard to be like, well, like, why is it? First of all, is questioning that. And then secondly is, you're right. Like, I think we were talking about it at dinner, was you could plant 2 pumpkins, one in a like super curated garden where you're like forcing its will to be in this planter box, or, you fed a pumpkin to a cow and it poops in the like middle of your pasture and it grows the biggest pumpkin you'll ever see. And you're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And it's because like that was the kind of the natural way that should go. Right. And so really being able to work with the cows and slow things down, or the chickens, and being like free ranging our chickens. Like I never would have done that. I would have been so worried about losing chickens to birds of prey. But maybe if you get a good guard dog, like Sam found for us, she found us good guardian dogs. Then you can let the chickens be out there, and then they can eat all the bugs, and the orchard goes great. Like those simple things that's obvious today, I would say a year ago wasn't.
Yeah, it's good. And kind of like wrapping it all up, you think about it from like a kingdom mindset. It's like, it's amazing that God created creatures that help humans work the land. Like, you just look at it from a very basic perspective. Like the big animals, poop and eat a lot of the forage so it doesn't get overgrown, and the little animals spread the poop and eat the bugs so it doesn't get overgrown, and animals die, and nitrogen goes crazy in the land, and stuff grows up there. And like, it's just interesting, like when we start looking at the grand design of things, it's like, man, maybe by us forcing the way we want to do things, domesticated life on the animals is not really sustainable, and that's why things tend to break out and move, or whatever. And it's like, nature's going to do what nature's going to do. Every apocalyptic movie that I've ever watched has like New York City grown in vines, and like all of that stuff. It's like, that's what's going to happen if we stop, like, you know what I mean, like imposing our will on nature. And it's so cool to be kind of a part of that process, and watch what happens when we let animals kind of like be animals, and be a part of the process, rather than just be in the way of us processing them, in a sense. So yeah, it's cool. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. It's a really fun talk. I think a lot of people are gonna be like, man, I've never thought about my food running out. Maybe I should visit my farmers, at least have someone that I can call to get food if I need it. If people are local to the Inland Empire, and they're interested in maybe seeing a cow or a pig for the first time, or seeing bees, or watching a cow get milked, or any of those things, how can they find you? How can they follow your story when you get the next 30 cows and all of that stuff?
So we share a lot on Instagram. We're Perfect Chaos Ranch, and we post about our tours. We try to do them on Wednesdays from 10 to 12, but we post every month what our tour days are, and sometimes we do some fun activities in between. But yeah, that's where we're at. And then we're also on perfectchaosranch.com.
Yep.
You have any workshops coming up?
We do. You want to talk about our turkey process?
Yeah. So in October, we're going to we always really like the idea of picking your Christmas tree, holiday season. And so we decided for October, we were going to do a pick your Thanksgiving turkey. So you'll be able to come out, go out there, catch your turkey that you are going to bring home to your family for dinner, and learn how to process it. So if you've never processed a bird, we'll be there to help you through it from start to finish. But you'll be able to catch your turkey, process it, clean it, bag it, and seal it, and take it home to throw in the freezer and be ready for your family. And it'll be just like all of our animals, free ranged, organic, healthy birds, nothing added.
Right. Definitely free range. I just left their property and 2 of the turkeys were out meandering the ground. So if that's yours, that one's extra protein filled.
Yeah, you're gonna have to. That'll be the one that'll be funner to catch too.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So don't come last, or that one will definitely be yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Cool. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I can't wait for people to listen. I think they're gonna love it. And we'll talk to you soon.
Hey,
Yeah.
thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Healthy Perspective Podcast. To connect with Dr. Bowman, follow him on Instagram at Dr. Chris Bowman. Until next time, make shift happen.